Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today, after bated breath, I'm sure everyone's excited for this, we are going to be having a look at some new mods. So this will be Jurassic World Evolution Dinosaur, Accurate Dinosaur Mod Series, Part 17. We'll take a look at a bunch of different dinosaurs and different mods and compare them to their real-life fossil counterparts. So I know this one's been waiting, but I thought this would be the perfect time to strike the iron while it's hot with all the Jurassic World Evolution 2 news. So we're going to get stuck into this one real quick, so I'm quite excited to show these guys off. So we're going to be starting with Incisorsaurus. So this guy was made by JWE and GG M87, so that's going to be cool. We'll have a look. Let's open him up. So we've got a really cool guy here. We'll see him run and probably grab some food. We'll stop when he has frozen up. That's probably it. Look at this man. He's a good man. So this is Incisorsaurus. So Incisorsaurus is like a really early relative of the. It's a small herbivorous theropod dinosaur, close relative of things like ornithomimids, like a really not ornithomimids, oviraptorids. That's the wrong one. It's an early oviraptorid. So these guys are from the early Cretaceous period of what's now China. And it was first described in 2002 with the skull that you can see here from the lowest most levels of the Yucatan Formation. That's about 126 million years old. So, Yucatan Peninsula from a lot of cool animals such as Utaranus and such. A little bit older than them. But these guys were found from the Barnian stage about 126 million years ago, found in the Liaoning province. What's really interesting about this guy, he's got a very unusual face, and we'll have a look at that here. So look at this guy. His name's Incisorsaurus because he has these two teeth here, a few teeth at the front that really look like incisors. And it seems to have an apparent adaptation for an herbivorous or omnivorous lifestyle, and that's why they have that prominent rodent-like teeth. You can see these big incisors here, quote unquote. They're not true incisors, but they are very similar. And they show wear patterns that are consistent with plant-eating dinosaurs, so it seems that they were evolving from carnivorous ancestors into herbivory again, which happened a lot of times in theropods, which is pretty cool. And these guys had a skull. Their skull was about 10 centimeters long, and the animal, I think, was about a meter long, or 1.8 meters. So not a particularly huge animal, but still wonderful. So that's the skull, and then they seem to like the base of the oviraptoran group, so they seem to be related to more primitive than Carbonemis and the oviraptorids, so things like Anzu, Gigantoraptor, Oviraptor, they're much later relatives of these guys. And the holotype, you can see the skull in 3 dimensions, and they had lots of air sacs in their, had less bird-like air sacs in their skull than the later ones did, so it seems that that's something that evolved over time with the oviraptorids as they evolved. They got lighter heads, which is pretty cool. So they became airheads over time, really. So that was a perfect joke. And what's also really awesome is that we have some feathered specimens. We have 2 feathered oviraptorid specimens. One comes from Carbonemis and one from similarly Carbonemis. And they said that may actually have been referred to the Incisorsaurus. So it very well could be this guy. But if we want to talk about the feathers on this guy, we can see some of the inaccuracies with this model in particular is obviously the pronated hands, and it's believed that these guys had proper pennaceous feathers, so not proper pennaceous, proper pennaceous feathers, so they had wings, and they also had feathers in the tail fan and things like that potentially. But we have some feathers, we know they definitely had feathers, and it's probably similar to those other guys since they are kind of related to those groups. And they see that we have these van ones, but we also have potentially ribbon-like primitive feathers that are seen in animals like Anasaurus, which are opposite birds. That's possible things, and they lost them through molting as they age, so it's kind of similar there. And yeah, as I mentioned, these guys were molted. We actually know how they molted as well. They noted in modern birds that these tail feathers molted sequentially, so not simultaneously. So that means they kind of molted kind of all in one occasionally comes off, not necessarily all in one go, because if you lose your feathers in one go, you can't fly. So these guys may have been had kept it in except penguins. Really, these guys have that sequential molting. But for lineages more primitive, these guys, that wouldn't have been an issue. So these guys may have actually kind of lost them simultaneously, like penguins do, and rather than flying birds. So that shows that these animals were kind of a more basal lineage, not related to the animals that were flying, but they still had feathers. That's really, really cool. Really wonderful animal. So this one mentioned by Joseph Berger and GGM87. So we'll watch this guy have his feed. Really wonderful animal here. Yum, yum, yum. If you guys remember, this guy is actually from Prehistoric Park as well. Very different design, but still looks really nice. Really cool animal here. Having a nice eatsies. Always a nice eatsies. So yep, now he's going to go off and do his thing. So now we're going to have a look at the next animal. This was done by NetRaptor. We have got Anzu. Let's get a look at him there. He's going to run for a drink, I think. Or for some meat, I think. See what he's going to do. He's going for water. Look at him go. So that's a good place to look at him. So we have got Anzu. So what is Anzu? Anzu is like a bird, it's named after a bird-like demon from ancient Mesopotamian religion, but this is a genus of Oviraptorid. It's like a carcinogid dinosaur, so it's related to animals like Gigantoraptor, some of the larger Oviraptorids. So this guy comes from Hell Creek, which is also famous for animals like Tyrannosaurus Rex, Triceratops, some of the most famous dinosaurs ever. And from North and South Dakota, and the type species is Anzu wairi. And this guy was actually described pretty recently. He was only described in 2015. Was actually considered one of the best top 10 new species found in 2014. And so kind of the year before, 2014, named, yeah, confusing. But this guy is really cool. You can see like other Oviraptorids. He's got like a toothless beak that you can see here, along with a really prominent crest. A really interesting crest. These long arms, and obviously the issue is that they're pronated, as always. And they have these quite slender toes and slender fingers, and then this relatively short tail that you see here. So these guys also got really big. They were really one of the bigger Oviraptorids, really only comparable things with like Gigantoraptor. These guys got huge. They get about 3 meters long, or about 9 feet. So 3 to 3.5 meters, up to 1.5 meters tall at the hip. So that's 1.5 meters, so over 2 meters tall total. And they may have weighed between 200 and 300 kilograms, so that's a pretty big animal. And was the largest North American Oviraptorid, though the Mongolian Gigantoraptor was larger, of course. So the type specimen is known from a bunch of different like little bits in here and there, and they're defined by a bunch of different things, such as upper branches on the crests and the paramaxilla. So that's that bit here. And have been known from several sites. Several large skeletons have been found, and they refer to them as another related genus. Critostenerus is another smaller genus of Oviraptorids known from the Hell Creek. But turns out these guys were the whole big new thing. And if these fossils been described, and only it was in 2014 where it was described as a new species, where they found the first. The genus is also notable being the first well-preserved example of a North American Oviraptorid, and so we kind of really didn't know much about them. And then we had this complete specimen, which was awesome. So these guys are a carcinogid. So that's like there's two big groups of Oviraptorids. There's Oviraptoridae and Carthaginidae. So that includes. Carthaginidae includes some of the bigger ones that you see, like Anzu, Gigantoraptor, and then Oviraptorids. Oviraptoridae also includes things like Oviraptor, City Party, things like that. So these guys are believed to be probably a herbivore or an omnivore, although their beak is not as heavily constructed as the Asian ones, so they probably didn't have as strong beaks. So it's very likely they may have been more herbivorous or just eating soft foods. And the fossils of these guys were found in mudstones, which indicated they may have lived on ancient floodplains, which is a very different habitat compared to the Asian relative that lived in like sand and or arid or semi-arid conditions. And it seems like also its jaw morphology suggests that it could eat a variety of foods, including eggs, small animals, and vegetation. And while a number of these features are similar to modern birds, it was not an avian dinosaur, and this guy died out with the rest of the dinosaurs except the birds in the late Cretaceous extinction. And the purpose of the Anzu's large crest is not very clear, but it's most likely something that could have been to attract mates, something like the cassowary. That's probably most likely. And they would have been pretty fast. We actually have injuries from some specimens. We have shows evidence of injuries, including one with an arthritic toe and a heel broken rib, which is probably the result of a tendon ripping away from the bone. And we do not know how the animal's injured, but that tells us a little bit of history. It gives a little bit of story to the animal, because he may have actually hurt himself while he was running away from a T-Rex, or he could have just tripped and hurt himself. We all know how that happens sometimes. So yeah, really wonderful animal. So we will watch this guy drink. Oh, he's not drinking, but that's alright. He was going to eat fish, is he? No idea what he's doing. But yeah, he should probably have full punacious feathers, but we don't really see that in game. Should have something on his tail and all that, and hanging out of his wings. But yeah, same with he's an early relative. Ichthyosaurus is here, and Incisorosaurus is a close relative of this guy, or early relative. So yeah, now let's get on to the next animal. Quite excited to get into this guy. We got some ceratopsians coming up. So this is Regaliceratops. This was made by Cabbage. To see where he's running off to. Do you know what? Since he stopped there, we'll have a talk about him while he's here. So this is Regaliceratops, whose name means royal horned face. And isn't that a great name for a ceratopsian? So this guy is a herbivorous ceratopsian dinosaur that's from the late Cretaceous that lived at about 68 million years ago from the Alberta, Canada. And this guy is a close relative of Triceratops and was named after this plated troll that kind of looks like a crown. It was discovered in 2005 from the Old River Formation in Alberta. And this was secured by the Royal Tyrrell Museum. And the cool nickname, the nickname they give the specimen for Regaliceratops was Hellboy. Isn't that cool? I love it. I love that history. So this guy is a member of the Triopsini group by Brown and Henderson. So this guy is a really early relative of things like Torosaurus and Triceratops. And yeah, this guy was also a pretty big animal. He was about 5 meters long and weighed about 1.5 tons. And yeah, it was found in the St. Mary River Formation during the Middle Maastrichtian. So that's like the really end of the Cretaceous, about 68 million years ago. So really only 2 million years or so before the extinction of the dinosaurs. So let's see what he goes and does now. Oh, he's going to run off. So that's pretty much... there's not actually that much described of him. He's only described really recently in 2015, I think it was, or even later than that. Still a wonderful animal. Yeah, 2015. Look at him go. And yeah, pretty spot on for Regaliceratops. I think it's really cool. Like, he's got a very charismatic frill that you can see here. We'll have a look there. Isn't that wonderful? And also we can see his feetsies are wrong. You know how I am about the feetsies. But other than that, he's really, really cool. Regaliceratops is a very cool animal. And I love the specimen name, Hellboy. That fits so well for this animal. So yeah, we're moving on from one ceratopsian to another ceratopsian. We're going to move on from Regaliceratops to Albertaceratops. So he's going to go for a feed, I think. Oh no. That's the wrong one. Accidentally clicked the wrong buttons. He's going for a feed too, so let's wait for him to stop. There we are. So this guy was made by LAStudios, who has some really wonderful models going on. So let's have a looky-loo. Look at you, I love your blue frill. Looking really nice. I normally don't like blue, but I think that came out really well. Look at that really cool skull there. So, Albertaceratops, which means Alberta horn face, is a centrosaurine horn dinosaur from the Middle Campanian age, from the Upper Cretaceous Oldman Formation. So younger, same formation as Regaliceratops, but a bit younger. So this guy is really unusual because it has these long brow horns with the combination of these long horns on the frill here. Really interesting combination, so that's what made it distinct, which is quite weird for centrosaurines. So this guy is a centrosaurine, so that's related to animals like Centrosaurus and Styracosaurus. This guy's a Triceratopsine, or a chasmosaurine, related to animals like Cymasukas and Triceratops and Torosaurus, as I mentioned. So yeah, this guy is really, really cool. It's also got a really, really hooked beak that you can see that they did here in really good detail. Good job, LAStudios. And these guys were quite big. They've been estimated to be about 5.8 meters long and about 3,500 kilograms, or 3.5 tons, or 7,700 pounds. So this guy was described from a single skull found in 2001, and found it was the most basal centrosaurine. And although there were additional specimens that were reported to come from the Jute River Formation in Montana, which was the kind of the same age as the Oldman Formation that these guys were found, and though the study found that this was a different centrosaurine, that was Medusaceratops, and they both lived at the same time, about 77.5 million years ago. And you can see the scientific name Albertosaurus nemosi is also derived from the name Cecil Nismo, a rancher who lived in Alberta, in a town that's less than 100 people, and was kind of recognized because the fossil was found on his land, and kind of was really recognized in this fossil. And I think it's cool that giving back to people like that, because really, if you want to find fossils, you're not always going to find them yourself. Sometimes you find them on other people's land. You have to be respectful, and honoring those people really helps foster a good relationship, which is really, really cool. And I think Albertaceratops is a really, really cool animal anyway. Oh, we'll have a look in here anyway. We'll watch some eatsies. Let's go. They're eating together. But are two ceratopsians of the video. Really wonderful animals. I love the colors on this guy. I like that the bright colors bring the attention to the face and the neck. I like that. Really nice. Looks like he's going off. Look at you, you wonderful big man. Love you, love you, love you. So now we're going to move on to the next animal. I don't want to keep you guys too long. So we've got something that's not a dinosaur, or not even an archosaur. We've got Carbonemis. So that's a really interesting animal. This was done also by Giuseppe, or Giuseppe, how you pronounce it, and GGM87. So this, I believe this was imported from Jurassic World Alive, or I'm not entirely sure on that, but we'll talk about this guy very soon. So yeah, we'll release him. So I gotta say, watching a tortoise gallop is a very weird thing, but that's really, really cool. But we'll talk about him soon. He's actually not a tortoise. He's actually something very, very different. So we will wait for him to drink and come here. At least he's going much farther than a real tortoise would be. Much faster. There we are. So let's have a good look at him. Wonderful animal. So This is Carbonemis. So Carbonemis is an extinct prosomenthid turtle that's known from the Middle Paleocene Cerrejón Formation from Brazil and northeastern Colombia. Basin, though. It's from the basin, Incisorsaurus basin of northeastern Colombia. So this guy is known from a formation that's dated to be about 60 to 57 million years ago. So this is the first few million years of the Cenozoic, and kind of like right after the extinction of the dinosaurs. So starting about 5 million years after the KT extinction events. That's what makes it really, really interesting. And you look at this guy, especially this model, it's reconstructed, and you look at the Ark one, it's reconstructed as a turtle, or a tortoise, I mean. Like a Galapagos or a Aldabra giant tortoise. But that actually really could not be further from the truth. This guy has some very interesting relatives. So this guy is a procemented day. That's the family it comes from. And it's a group of side neck turtles. So these include things like your little side necks you get from Australia, like your snake necks. They're all from the southern hemisphere. But this guy has some very interesting relatives. So this guy is... Although it's called a side neck, it's because they kind of bring their necks into the side and instead of bringing them directly into the body. But these guys are found kind of in two very weird places. So there's kind of three genera. There's the Madagascan big-headed turtle, so that's obviously from Madagascar. The big-headed Amazon river turtle, which is obviously from the Amazon. And then the South American side-necked river turtles, so that's a whole group of turtles that are from there. So they're not very closely related to tortoises at all. So I think this is a very wrong reconstruction, but still a really cool animal to show off regardless, just for that little tidbit of information. And the model itself is really high quality. I really like it. It's just not accurate to the real animal. It looks like a really nice tortoise. And there's many other giant prehistoric tortoises that would be really, really cool to show off. So this guy's holotype was found in 2005, I believe, from the coal mine, and was by a doctorand named Edwin Caldera from the Northern Carolina State University. And they measured the shell of this guy, and it had a 1.72 or 5 feet 8 inches long shell, which made it one of the largest in the world. So really the only larger animals like Stupendemis, which is ridiculous giant shells. But this is still one of the largest tortoises around. No, not tortoises, side-neck turtles around. The jaws of these guys were also very large and very powerful enough, and they were able to eat crocodilians, believe it or not, and were abundant in these first neotropical forests. So this was like right after the late Cretaceous, and the world was still very, very warm, and it was kind of all these giant reptiles were kind of coming into full force. And if you guys know your animals, if you know this formation, this turtle coexisted with the giant bowered Titanoboa, and a bunch of other large reptiles and things, so it was a very packed habitat, very different than what you consider now. All these, in this hothouse environment, all the reptiles really just took off and become enormous. So yeah, still a really cool animal regardless. So let's watch him have a drink. Very, very cute. I believe this, I'm pretty sure it's Jurassic World Alive, or I'm not sure what game this comes from. It's definitely not Ark, because I know it's from Ark. But yeah, I feel like that little bit of taxonomy that we were talking about is really, really interesting. Ooh, really wonderful guy. Look at him have a nice drinky drink. So now we're going to move on to the next animal. This will be our last herbivore. Now this is a really cool little guy, I love him. So we're going to be talking about Cymasukas. Let's get him. Look at him go, look at him go. We'll meet him at the halfway. Where did he go? There he's going. Look at him go! Cymasukas is so cute. Well, let's have a look at him while we're looking at him. There he is, little man. So what is this little man? You're thinking, what the heck is he? Oh, but you're gonna love this guy. So this is Cymasukas, whose name means pug-nosed crocodile. Is and an extinct genus of Notosuchian crocodiliomorphs. So, Notosuchian are a group of extinct crocodiles that lived during the Mesozoic that kind of almost became pseudo-mammals. A lot of them have really, really mammal-like dentition, which is weird, including this guy. They kind of almost look like mammals in a way. There's some relative to this guy that looks like they have like big rodent incisors. They're a very, very interesting group of animals. But this guy comes from the late Cretaceous of Madagascar. And it got his name because of his very, very short snout that you see here. He looks like a pug, of course. That's where he gets the name pug-nosed crocodile. And they weren't very big. The largest individuals that we know that are fully grown only got about 0.75 meters long, or 2.5 feet long. And these guys, obviously, as I mentioned, found in province. Although there may have been some fossils may have found in India. And you're thinking, why are they in India? But if you also look at plate tectonics, Madagascar and India were connected in the and only really just started to break apart in the late Mesozoic, so about 85 million years ago. That's where they started splitting. And this guy's got really, really cool little teeth. You can see, I can't really show it on the model, but they've got like little maple leaf shaped teeth, so the Canadians will love that. And they consider that almost like a really good evidence that it was a herbivore. So this is a little herbivorous crocodile. Now that's a weird thought, but in reality, crocodiles were so much more diverse in the Mesozoic and even in the Cenozoic than we know them today. So they're a really, really diverse group. So this guy's, I mentioned, very small, only about 7.5 meters long, 0.75, just clarifying. Not very big. And in most respects, you can see their postcranial skeleton is very resembles that of other crocodiles, terrestrial crocodiles as well. It's not too drastically different, but you can see it's got these long pronged things and small humerus and that. And they were also covered by a bunch of large osteoderms. They didn't really show it off that well here, but they had really interesting plates of osteoderms that would have been very good protection from the animals that lived with, like Majungasaurus. If it wanted to eat a little Cymasukas, he was a little prickly little boy, so you wouldn't want to touch him, but he's still very, very cute. So this guy was first described in 2000 from like a complete skull and lower jaw, but then more and more specimens have been found as people looked around there. And they're considered to be a basal member of the clade Notosuchia, which is a group of land crocodiles, a really cool group of animals that I consider researching into. A really interesting group, as I keep mentioning. And these guys were fully terrestrial, not like your semi-aquatic crocodiles you see today. He was fully terrestrial, and his short tail would have been little use for swimming, and he had robust legs for moving and potentially digging. There has been proposed that he may have been a good digger, but that's not widely agreed upon, with the evidence of this suggesting he has robust limbs and a shovel-like face, which would have been good for moving dirt, and also these strong neck muscle attachments that would have been good evidence. And they also seems that these had very inflexible off the skin and stuff. They would have been very, very hard, so obviously wouldn't be too flexible. And had the erect posture, so they were kind of not like a crocodile that walks splayed. This guy kind of walked like a little mammal. He had his legs erect, so he could walk properly. And as I mentioned, this guy was a herbivore, so he's like very similar to the animals such as iguanids. That's kind of their similar diet. And this guy is obviously mentioned, as I found, he's found from Madagascar, and he is found in really interesting animals in this formation. There's like crocodilians that have been found, like Albertaceratops, which is also known from the same formation, but we don't know its relation. Animals that lived with were, of course, Majungasaurus, Albertoceratops, Rahanavis, a bunch of other really cool animals that are in Madagascar. It was almost like a little island. It was even an island back in the late Cretaceous, so it really had a good opportunity to expand and play with life. Also, Gondwanatherium, that was recently described as a really weird group of mammals. Cool guys. So yeah, wonderful little guy. We're going to watch him have a drink. Oh, he's running. Where's he going? Oh, no! Isn't he cute? Well, since he's not going to have a drink, I think what we'll do is carry on to the next animal. And as well, so he was done by Dressaburgia and Jibaro, I believe how you pronounce it, but really, really wonderful. You also can see he's got a rig edit. Where is he? Rig edit, so he's kind of the homocephale, but they kind of like mirrored the back legs on his front legs. So he looks like he's a four-legged animal, so that's really, really cool. But now we're going to move on to our carnivores. So we have got... This animal's not even a dinosaur. This is really interesting. This is Anasaurus. This was done by Cabbage. So let's watch him and make sure he goes for a nice drink or a feed. We'll see what he'll do. Okay, let's stop him here. Oh, look what he's in the light. Really nice design, I think. So, what is Anasaurus? So, this is an extinct genus of dinosauriform reptiles. So he's not technically a dinosaur, but he's a close relative of the dinosaurs. He's from the Middle Jurassic of Tanzania, and is actually considered to be one of the earliest known, if not the earliest known dinosaur. So he looks from appearances, he doesn't look very interesting, but taxonomically, very interesting animal. So this guy was first described in 1956 by Alan J. Terang, but was not formally described until 2013. And previously, the oldest recorded dinosaurs were from the late Carnian, about 231.4 million years ago. And this guy comes from the Abyssian stage, which is 12 million years older than that. So this guy's a very, very old guy. So the type specimen is known from an individual that's believed to be about 2 or 3 meters long. It contains a humerus, part of sacral vertebrae, so that's around the hip there, sacral vertebrae, and 3 presacral vertebrae, so pretty much known from scanty little bits. There was also a second specimen found from some cervical vertebrae, and I think some other specimens just found other bits here and there. And a really interesting thing about this guy as well, that they looked in the internal structure of the humerus that indicated it had rapid bone growth and also interwoven bone fibers, which means they would have lines of arrested growth. So this is similar to really early dinosaurs as well, and suggesting that they were closer to ancestry to the dinosaurs than to other archosaurs that lived in the Jurassic as well. So that really helps a little bit with their ancestry. So this guy has also been suggested to be a primitive prosauropod, and also related to animals like Carbonemis. Its taxonomy's been a bit over the place, also been considered a silesaurid, and a bunch of other small groups like that, but is generally just considered a very basal group of animal outside of Dinosauria, or even been other some specimens have been other different. So some specimens have been come back as some sort of relative of Coelophysis and Dilophosaurus, while others have come back as related to Ornithischians, which is really, really interesting. Just depends on the characters you use. And yeah, so part of it might also be this animal is just so plastic because of its different anatomies and very, very basal species. So it's kind of very hard when you get down to the nitty-gritty. But still a really, really cool little animal, and does teach us a lot about how dinosaurs came to be. So you wouldn't be able to have your Brachiosauruses, your Triceratopses, your Stegosauruses, and your T-Rexes without this little guy surviving in his little habitat in Jurassic. So you got him to thank for your wonderful dinosaurs. So yeah, I'm going to let him have his drink, and then we're going to move on to the second to last animal. Isn't he wonderful? Really nice animal as well. I really like his bright skull. So now we're going to move on to the next one. So this one was done by Joseph Bergier and GGM87. So this is another one by them. We have got Draco Venator. So let's make sure, is he going to go for a drink or for an eat? Oh. Happy boy? Happy boy, or is he not happy? That's the question. Oh, he's going for a feed. Hungry boy. So, what is Draco Venator? Let's stop him while he's here. Come on, stand still for me, buddy. So this is Draco Venator. So you can see he's quite familiar. What do you think? He looks like someone we know. So he is a genus of Dilophosaur dinosaur from about 201 to 199 million years ago, from the early part of the Jurassic period, found in South Africa. So he's medium size. He's about 5.5 to 6.5 meters long, although other estimates have put him at about 7 meters and about 400 kilograms, and known from a bunch of different fragments such as premaxillae, fragments of the maxilla, a bunch of different bits and pieces here and there. And obviously he's considered Dilophosaurid, so he's a close relative of Dilophosaurus. So he is also classified as I mentioned, those relatives. And just really, really cool animal. He's from the Upper Elliott Formation in South Africa, so early Jurassic. And I think that just really makes him cool, and is also named Draco Venator. That's a very interesting name. So his name means Dragon Hunter. So that's a really cool name, isn't it? His name's Dragon Hunter. And there have been some confusion a little bit with his taxonomy, since animals like Cymasukas may actually be Dilophosaurus. So it's possible that Draco Venator could either be a species or just lumped into Dilophosaurus. Though that's neither here nor there, it's still a contentious thing. But still a really, really cool animal, obviously a large carnivore. We don't know enough. We do have, I believe, it's quite speculative, but considering he's a close relative of Dilophosaurus, he probably should definitely have a head crest. And you can see this guy is actually based a lot more of the 2020 version of Dilophosaurus, who got a big overhaul. Looks like a very different animal, much bigger and thicker, and I think that's awesome. So this guy, as I mentioned, come from the Upper Elliott Formation. Upper Elliott, I mean. So which was in sort of an ancient floodplain, and is found with dinosaurs such as Plateosaurus and Massospondylus, which have been recovered there. Also, the world's most diverse fauna of early Jurassic Ornithischian dinosaurs, which includes Fabrosaurus, Aprocosaurus, Heterodontosaurus, and Leslasaurus, which is very important because that's very early in the evolution of these dinosaurs, so that tells you a lot. Also, the Forest Sandstone Formation was a paleoenvironment with a bunch of different animals such as protosuchid crocodiles, sphenodonts. So sphenodonts are a very ancient group, and the only living relative now of the sphenodonts are, of course, the Tuatara, the dinosaur Massospondylus, and the intermediate remains of the prosauropods, of another prosauropod. And Draco Venator is thought to be the apex predator of this ecosystem, preying on the prosauropods and the other faunas that you see there. So yeah, very, very cool guy. So we'll watch him have his feed. Very, very cool animal. Probably one of the most wonderfulest. So yeah, we'll watch him eat. Okay, so now we're on our last animal, but we haven't got a dinosaur. He is a mammal. So we have got the giant ground sloth, everyone's favorite big megafaunal animal, Megatherium. So let's watch him go. So Megatherium, whose name in Greek means great beast, is an extinct genus of the giant ground sloths, who are a very diverse and interesting group. So this guy lived from the early Pliocene to the end of the Pleistocene, so right at the end. So we'll watch him have a feed, and then we'll pause it. It's a really wonderful animal here. So these guys got huge. They were one of the largest of the mammals. They were comparable in size to today's modern elephants. And the largest species of this guy, Mammut Americanum, which is also known as the giant ground sloth, is native to the Pampas through from southern Bolivia during the Pleistocene. And there are very other species belong to subgenuses and such. But yeah, the taxonomy is neither here nor there. But they also have a very, very close relative, a Megatherium, which is very similar sized and a very similar sort of ecology to Megatherium, but lived in more northern areas such as Brazil, even is found in places like Florida. So it's basically northern Megather, or a southern Megather would be Megatherium, which is pretty cool. And as I mentioned, these guys found in the Andes as well. So this guy was also first discovered in 1788 back in Argentina, and the holotype was shipped to Spain, where it caught the attention of George Cuvier, who was one of the first to determine what it was through comparative anatomy, that it was a sloth, which is really cool. And this guy actually became extinct during the Quaternary extinction event about 12,000 years ago, sadly. Which is also claimed to take it out most of the other mammals like the Toxodons, Macrauchenia, and Smilodon from the New World. So, as I mentioned, this guy got huge. It was one of the largest of the mammals to exist, and also one of the largest of the Pleistocene megafauna. Really, only things like mammoths were bigger. So, this guy weighed up to 4 tons and measured up to 6 meters long. So, it was the largest known ground sloth, and really would have been exceeded by a few species of mammoths. The animals that have lived 12,000 years ago, though there are larger animals such as Paleoloxodon, Namendes, and Idriochetheres. So you can see these guys are very heavily built. They've got these large pelvises because they would have adopted a lot of time a tripodal stance to try and browse. That's why they have a robust pelvis where they could feed at heights of that allowed them to not compete with other herbivores. And they also have these big curved claws that you can see here, similar to things like anteaters and modern sloths. They use to most likely to pull branches in for them to feed on. But also, if you know how deadly a giant anteater is, you'll know that they would make very wonderful protection from any other animals, really. And we know that they actually walked with on the sides of their feet from fossilized trackways. So yeah, that's really cool, and they showed that they are capable of bipedal locomotion. So you could potentially have a sloth walking around that is on its back legs, looking like a big menacing creature. And what's also really cool is that they have a very narrow snout. There's like with animals that you can see, like the ground sloths, you can see their ecology from their different mouth shapes. So species like LAStudios and things like that, Carbonemis, I believe is named, they're very wide snouts, which means that allows them to graze better. But the animals with the very particular, like slender snouts, these guys would have been more browsers, and Megatherium definitely fits the browser ecology, and would probably been pretty good at it, and also had a very large hyoid bone, which anchors the tongue. That means it had a prehensile tongue that was able to grab and manipulate things and bring it into its mouth. And what's also really weird about these guys, they lack enamel, dentine, or dental cusp patterns of other mammals. Instead, they have a layer of Centurium, orthodentin, and modified orthodentine, which is creating a very soft and easy abradable surface. So the teeth of these guys exhibit extreme hesperodonty, which means they have a very gritty, fibrous diet. So it's a really interesting thing about these guys. Really cool sloth, of course. So as mentioned, these guys are a very diverse group. We know that ground sloths and even modern sloths, which are clade separately within them, so tree living sloths evolved twice within sloths. Very interesting evolution, and we've also had collagen and mitochondrial DNA come from these guys. And there's a bunch of different species ranging from the small Caribbean ones to ones that lived in America, North America, and like some are grazers. We have even Megatherium burrows that a person can walk into, like a cave, and I think that's just so cool. So this guy lived in kind of woodland and grassland habitats across southern South America, like in the Pampas, and they would have lived kind of opposite areas to Megatherium, as Rembatherium, I mean, which lived more north. These guys are more south. And it's just still really cool animals. They may have lived mostly in groups. You have evidence of these guys living in large herds, like similar to elephants, or lived singly in caves, and they would have had a browsing diets where they lived in these open habitats, feeding on soft, tough food, moderate to soft, tough food, so kind of browsing and potentially even a small amount of grass. So they would have been eating pretty much whatever they can, and could stand on their hind limbs, as I mentioned, with a tripod to feed, and they would have actually been able to... What's the cool thing about these guys as well is that generally Xenarthrans, which is the group that includes anteaters, sloths, and armadillos, these guys would have had lower metabolic rates, so it's very possible these guys could have had much smaller, shorter coats of hair, but Megatherium did live in cooler habitats, so it's kind of there. But these guys kind of have that evolution to allow them... modern sloths use that as an ability to try and eat more poisonous food, or just live off less food. And there have been like some suggestions that these guys would have been partly carnivorous, which is obviously highly contested and probably pretty unlikely. And it's found that like carbon isotopes and stuff that have been showed values similar to animals such as mammoths, macrocanias, and glyptodons, which is very different from omnivorous and carnivorous mammals. That suggests that it's obviously an obligate herbivore, but even then, giraffes will feed on bones. A lot of animals will eat like dead birds or even scavenge off carcasses. Even recently, there was a tortoise that ate a bird. It's very hard. It's not a very... it's kind of more of a spectrum. Even these guys will take in the protein if necessary. And to talk about their extinction, they were flourishing until 10,500 years ago, or 8,500 BC. And most cite that they may have been human hunting causing their extinction, but there's also evidence there could be spreading of diseases, competition from other animals, maybe even a meteor. The Pleistocene extinction is almost as contentious as, if not more so, than the extinction of the dinosaurs. So it's a very, very interesting topic that I could spend hours and hours, and I'm sure lots of people could spend hours and hours talking about. But we're just going to say we don't know, but there's a lot of very interesting factors like human hunting, climate, disease, maybe a meteor, and maybe a combination of all those factors that led to these guys' extinction, along with the other megafauna across the world. So yeah, a really wonderful animal. We're going to let him have a feed. Isn't he cute? I want to hug a ground sloth. I imagine that'd be so soft to hug, but I wouldn't want to get in front of those claws. And plus, these guys are huge. Elephant-sized sloths is just something that blows the mind. But yeah, really nice model. This was done by Luca, Hendricks, and LGFM. So these are modders that were very, very prevalent in the Zoo Tycoon 2 scene, and they kind of ported this model. This was kind of like a model to recreate the Walking with Beasts Megatherium, so they kind of just ported it to JWE, and it fits surprisingly well, don't you think? And I think it just looks awesome. Really nice skins as well. Who doesn't love a nice ground sloth? I love a nice ground sloth. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this guy in PK as well, because they're going to have him. Who doesn't love a good sloth? So yeah, I think we're going to finish that up. He's just going to have a drink, but we're going to finish this video up. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified when uploading anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.